the corn and soy lobby is so powerful, and it's just so powerful. That's the reality. It's like I'll tell you, I won't tell you who it was because it was like a closed door session and I'm not supposed to say, but somebody in the Trump administration said when you're in meetings with these lobbyists of other industries, they're like, oh yeah, we acknowledge that there's some problems with our industry, and there's some acknowledgement of that. And he was like, literally corn and soy, they just think there is no problems with their industry and they are unwilling to bend in any way, shape, or form. And there's many, many states that if you oppose the corn and soy lobby, you just don't get elected and that's like the whole center of the country. And so that is a problem.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 421. I'm talking to Mollie Engelhart, who runs the Sovereignty Ranch in Texas, and she's going to talk about, why our food is not good. I read an article that she wrote, and I said, I've got to get this lady on to talk about this stuff. So, on how government regulation affects the food. So, how are you, Mollie?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Yes. So, what is exactly the government doing to American food, and how long has this been going on?
That's a big question, and I could talk for 2 hours about that. But essentially, we are highly regulated in so many different ways, and much of what looks like it's supposed to help the farmers or even help people, like food stamps and all this stuff, is literally just a system built to create value for commodity crops that we don't really need, that we keep growing, and we just keep making shitty food out of it. And then we have a guaranteed people are going to buy it because there's all the SNAP benefits. And like, I don't know if you know, but like, for example, soda is like 19% of SNAP or food stamps is spent on soda. In my opinion, soda should not even be able to be purchased with a nutrition grant for the government, because nutrition is in the name. Therefore, it should cause nutrition. But aside from that, they're in between every part of humans and their food. And so we are strangling all the entrepreneurs out there that could start different businesses, but the regulations, the requirements, all in the name of safety. But if our food was so unsafe before and is so safe now, why are we metabolically so unhealthy? And so we've traded, yes, we've like managed for pathogens and food poisoning, but in the trade-off is that we're completely devoid of nutrients, we're obese, and we're starving for minerals because our food is longer supply chains. And it's been going on since, we started the whole food stamp program when there was so few people able to go to war. And we were like, oh, we have a problem of malnourishment. But back then it was just about less than 20% that was too malnourished to join the military. Right now, we only have 23% of our young people are metabolically healthy enough to join the military. So this pendulum has swung way in the other direction. And I'm not sure that we're doing any good. And then when you look at it, farmers are some of the most like resilient and self-sustaining people. So they don't really want to admit that we have a fully socialized food system that is altering the price of everything because it's a laundering of tax dollars. We're laundering tax dollars to subsidize corn, soy, and cotton, mostly corn and soy. And then we are feeding that corn and soy to a plethora of other animals. And then we're also feeding it to ourselves in a plethora of products, which is driving the cost of everything down. And people say, well, isn't low food cost good? Well, no, because we just basically have a socialized system where inexpensive food that makes us unhealthy, that's making these few corporations super wealthy, is making us all sick. And there's this whole relationship between big pharma, big food, and the agrochemical companies, that they're all in bed together. They're all making a fortune. Well, we are getting sicker and sicker. Our sperm counts are getting lower and lower. Our fertility is getting lower and lower. We're metabolically less and less healthy. We're fatter and fatter, and we're living shorter and shorter lives. And that is crazy to me that people are going to go out in the street and scream about ICE. And yeah, so I don't think ICE should shoot people, and I don't think people should get in fights with ICE. But why aren't people out in the street screaming for the fact that the average male will have 0 sperm count by 2040? That's everybody. That's eliminating everybody. That's a much more bigger issue. And we seem to not even care.
Yeah, that I know what you're saying. I mean, I tell people all the time that American life expectancy peaked in 2014, and it's been slightly going down since then. And I do know sometimes some of this gets buried because every time now I try to Google life expectancy, it'll go back to the fake pandemic. I said no, it was starting before the fake the scamdemic. I don't want to get into that, but you probably saw that for what it is too.
Of course, sir.
Just another power grab. But you go back 150 years. Most people probably never ate food that was more than 50 miles away, and that's probably stretching it.
Yes, I talk about this a lot. We didn't have refrigeration in people's homes until late into the 1920s. So you can think 100 years ago, everybody's milk and dairy and meat was coming from and vegetables was coming from a very local source. Spices and grains have historically traveled farther distances. But yes, the majority of our fresh food was fed to us. And I made an argument in an article recently, and boy, did people get mad about it. I said that feminism was the death of healthy Americans because we basically sold women on this idea that they have better things to do than nourish their families. And so there's all this boxed and hamburger helper and Pop-Tarts and all this stuff. And by convincing women that it was like a convenient way to feed your family and you don't need to be doing from scratch cooking, we ushered in a whole host of other problems. And people got super mad that I said that. But I think that we have convinced women to do something other than cook. And because of that, the root cause of all of it is literally that we've abandoned the traditional family structure where people would nourish their families, where that would be important. It's almost like we don't talk about nourishment. We're just feeding ourselves as a habitual thing. I'm just going to stop at the gas station and pop this weird plastic thing that was in a plastic container and sitting under a hot lamp all day. I'm sure that's good for me. And then we've nourished ourselves. And so we don't really talk or think about the quality of the food that we eat anymore because they're literally trying to move us to bugs and 3D printed stuff. So they definitely don't want to talk about what's missing from the food that we're eating now because they want to take it a much further step in the totalitarian agenda.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I know exactly what you're talking about, the connection between feminism, because, my grandmother, she took pride in, making good food. Now, it's funny, the thing I remember most about grandma was the cornbread, the cinnamon rolls, and the no-bake cookies, which aren't necessarily the best things for you, but there really was, because now it removed people from, eating quickie stuff. And I'll admit, I eat too much of it myself, or always going out to eat. And you have no idea what you're getting if you do that.
Well, you can know that you're getting Cisco food that came on a Cisco truck.
Yeah, so much. Yeah, Cisco, and that's SYSCO, Cisco Foods, not the other company that makes all the routers and switches and stuff, and internet devices. But it's all coming from this, and it's all been very concentrated now too. I could go down to a store to eat an apple, or I could go down to the store to eat beef, and maybe that beef was slaughtered 20 miles away, but who knows? It might have went to Denver and back while in between.
Yeah, and you could, when you're eating a hamburger, it could have as much as 1,000 different sets of DNA. Just when it comes to this basic like coherency of the human body, I don't believe that God made us to eat 1,000 sets of DNA at one time. That's not historically how it happened. We killed an animal, we ate that animal. We didn't eat 1,000 sets of DNA at one time. It's not creating coherency in our body for sure. And people can say, oh, that's woo-woo. But under what circumstances would that be normal?
Yeah. Yeah. When do you think this got started? I mean, I guess we could go back to the beginning of the Food and Drug Administration, people like, Upton Sinclair in the Jungle and all of these alleged do-gooders.
I mean, I would say that with the Farm Bill creating food stamps and creating the lunch program was kind of the beginning of the end, when we started paying farmers to grow crops that we don't really need rather than them being in a free market and growing. I mean, here's the thing. Agriculture is not a free market. Like every farmer you ever meet is going to be a free market guy pretty much. I mean, no, that's not true. There's a bunch of organic like garden farmers that I'm sure are like super on the socialism tip, but they probably don't even, and then they're complaining about the system is broken too and don't even realize that it is a socialized system. But what I'm saying is the majority of farmers are free market guys, but the market is not free. Beef doesn't cost what it costs me to bring a cow to market. That's what beef should cost. In Central Texas, beef should cost what it costs to bring a cow to market. So if a calf hits the ground today, 18 to 24 months, I can breed her. And then 9 months after that, she can have a baby. And then 9 months, I could sell it as a weeder. 2.5 years from there, I could sell it as a beef cow. So we're talking between 3.5 to 5 years to get an ROI on holding a heifer back in your herd to grow your herd. What is that? And then, but I don't get to even say what the beef price is going to be in 5 years. It could be lower. It could be higher. It's all dictated. Lemons, oranges, avocados, they're all dictated. So it's not like, oh, it costs this much to grow oranges in California, so this is how much oranges cost. Oranges are right now $80 per 1,000 pounds in California to the packing house. Tell me who can grow oranges for 8 cents a pound? Who can do it? They can't. It's either a tax write-off, they're losing money. 85% of us are working full-time off-farm jobs in order to have the privilege to grow your food. So the question is, why are we allowing this system? Farmers who want a free market, shouldn't the market be free? And even if you're going to manipulate the market, it should be a bottom, that they put a bottom on it. And so we know the bottom of what we're going to get is this, and then we can decide whether we can grow beef in that space. But right now we have no idea what the price of beef is going to be, what the price of lemons. These are commodity crops. Why don't oranges, lemons, beef cost what it costs to produce them plus a little bit? That's the free market, but we don't have that in farming.
Yeah, why are oranges, for example, being priced so cheap? Yeah, 8 cents per pound. That seems pretty low.
It's crazy low for the farmer to get that, because you're not going to buy oranges at the grocery store for double that. It's not like 16 cents. So then they get it to retail at 16 cents a pound. It's not. A bag of oranges is like $8 for 5 pounds. So that means that is, 70 something cents a pound. So the farmer should be getting 40 cents a pound or whatever. But that's not the way it's working. The system is designed to give the middlemen all of the value, and the farmers are doing all of the work, dealing with the weather, the water, the deaths and then we get to just be told how much stuff costs. And so I sell direct to consumer, and people say $13 a pound for ground beef. That sounds crazy, Molly. And I'm like, can you grow ground beef for less than $13 a pound? $10 for a dozen eggs? That's crazy, Molly. I'm $7 in feed in those eggs. So are you saying that the $3 for housing the chickens, collecting the eggs, washing the eggs, and the carton, that I'm being overpaid in $3? Because I'm $7 in feed into it. Like, I actually think my eggs need to be $15, but the market won't bear it. So there I am in that middle space. But I get to say that because I sell direct to consumer. But if I was selling into the system, I don't even get to do that. A full grown cow right now, like calves are going for expensive right now. They're like $2,800 for a calf, 9 months old. That's expensive. But if you think about you had to raise that cow for 9 months, the mom had 9 months of pregnancy, you had to feed the mom the whole time, then you had to feed the calf. Is $2,800? I mean, we're talking about less than $150 a month. Like it's not that, we're not talking about like a huge amount of money. Nobody's going to house your cow for $150 a month. If you were like, I have a cow, can you take care of it for $150 a month? Nobody's going to do that because you can't feed it for that. So it all comes down to, and I think that, and then you got to bring in the weather, modification, all the droughts, all the floods, all this stuff. This is also to control food because we are dependent on hay. We're dependent on all these things because the ecological system that we live in is being highly manipulated as well. Or maybe I'm getting too out there for you. I don't know. But
yeah, I've certainly heard various theories about our weather being manipulated, but I don't want to go. I want to stay more, I want to know how government regulations are impacting you.
I'll give you an example right now. This is not me personally, but I just wrote an article. It's in the Epoch Times like 2 days ago about this. But so I have a family that's friends of mine. We've owned property together. We have some business dealings still. I still have a property like in my name that they farm. They sold produce out of date. So for example, what that means is they have a certified producer certificate, which means that the state has said they grow these specific products and an inspector has come and looked at them. The inspector then looks at the crops and estimates what are the months that they will have those crops growing. And then they sold out of dates, which means either after or before their dates, the cauliflower was ready early or they still had some at the end of the season, and they sold blueberries and cauliflower out of date. And they did not prove that they had bought and sold someone else's produce. But let's even say hypothetically they bought a neighbor's produce and sold it. But their punishment, so they've sold out of date 3 times in 3 years. They've been caught by the inspectors. So they've been fined. Now they're going to be unable to sell at any markets, any farmers markets in all of California for 6 months. This is a huge farming operation. It supports like 20 people in an extended family farm. They have 3 pieces of property, the one that they have with me, and then 2 other pieces of property that they grow. One is mostly cucumbers and greenhouses. Another one is strawberries. And then the one that's with me is avocados, oranges, lemons, and row crops, and some greenhouses. And so they do 20 farmers markets a week. 20 farmers markets a week. So now they are going to be unable to sell at any market. So what do they do with their cucumbers, their strawberries, all this stuff that is not any shelf life on it? They can sell avocados, oranges, and lemons to the packing house for the whopping $80, 1,000 pounds for their oranges. That's not going to support a 20-person family, extended big family.
Yeah, and this is all because of these regulations, these arbitrary regulations.
And I believe that there's a reason for those regulations. They want to make sure that people can trust who they're buying. And I can say that you can even punish them, fine them if you want. But to tell them they cannot, that's not a free market. You can't sell your wares and goods in the state until you're being punished. It's every kind of place. Like we have a farm on the restaurant. We have a restaurant on the farm. I can't harvest a pig. People are always like, oh, can we do a thing? And you harvest a pig and teach us how to butcher it. And then I can't sell that meat if I butcher the pig myself. But if I send it to another place, they put a stamp on it and then send me back the whole carcass. I can chop it up and sell it. So someone tell me, how does that make any sense? Like, what is it that we're being saved from all the time? You can't sell raw milk. I mean, I joke raw milk is the real white privilege, and we need to make it legal for everybody because it's white and it's a privilege. because you can't get it anywhere unless you pretend it's pet food or that you're in a herd share or that or secretly driving to the back of a parking lot of a gas station to get your raw milk. Like, come on. This is one of the healthiest foods in the world. John Hopkins started out as a raw milk fasting medical center. So if you guys think that raw milk is not healthy, there's a whole book called The Raw Milk Diet, and it was in the 1900s, and it's saying in the early 1900s, universally exemplary results is the quote about how it was doing the raw milk fast. And it was anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, bed rest, only raw milk, and hot baths. And this was curing Crohn's disease, curing cancer, curing like inflamed bowel, something like all these different diabetes, all these different things they were curing. And now we act like it's dangerous to drink raw milk. It's crazy. It's dangerous to drink homogenated milk from 1,000 different cows, all homogenated into 1 gallon.
Yeah, I never thought about the gene mixing thing. Yeah, but how many, you go buy a gallon of milk today, how many cows are in that? I can only imagine. It's
a lot.
Yeah, it's so
but what if we could be not such pussies, for lack of a better word? Like, why are we so terrified that we need the government in every little bit of things? And I'm not suggesting that we get rid of the HEBs and Walmarts of the world. And I'm not suggesting that they don't have their health standards. What I'm suggesting is that there's 2 tracks. If you're like, I want raw milk, I want eggs that are not washed, I'm not even legally allowed to sell unwashed eggs, even if people want unwashed eggs. There's a reason when people want unwashed eggs is they don't need to be refrigerated and blah, 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 blah. So, but I'm not allowed to sell them. What if there could be 2 tracks? There's the track of I'm a grown human being with discernment, and I will eat what I want to eat and take full responsibility because I'm not afraid. And the person who's afraid can go to Walmart, HEB, and they can have all this system, and they can let the system keep them safe and suck on the tit of the government. I don't care. But why can't we emancipate this other system and let those of us who want to be free be free?
I know what you're saying. Yeah. And I would, on the whole, say that HEB is a pretty good corporate citizen. I won't necessarily say that about Walmart.
I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm saying that they follow these health standards, and it started from all different, every president has added into the health standards and made it more regulatory. Red tape. And I'm saying I understand why HEB is going to be in that system. I'm not talking bad about HEB one way or the other. What I'm saying is that system exists. We all know that exists. What I'm saying is, can we have a system alongside of that emancipates the entrepreneur that wants to be in the food space but doesn't have the commercial kitchen and the this and the public service well and the septic tank that can take this kind of grease and all the regulations, and let you sell tomato soup to your neighbor? Like, I just feel like that should be allowed.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it really has gone down a path, and I do want to know. It seems like you mentioned food stamps and stuff like that. So this was around World War II that this happened, because apparently they found we have a bunch of soldiers who can't fight because now they were. And as you pointed out, and I don't know who was that senator or congressman who said, why is it we're the only country in the world where the poor people are fat? And that's the truth.
It is. And here's the thing: we do this whole food stamps thing, and it's part of the farm bill. And so I'm not even saying, if we're going to have these subsidies and we're going to have this kind of thing, then it should support farmers. And so this system that really just supports these big corporate oligarchies and doesn't support the farmer, it's part of it's the majority of the farm bill goes to this SNAP benefits. It's in the farm bill. That's where that money comes from. I don't even know if people understand that.
Well, if you haven't learned it by now, any laws just, to benefit the lobbyists who pay for it. It's not about the public. I mean, and as you pointed out too, it is rather odd that a lot of the people who who are into organic food, the people who shop at Wheatsville Food Co-op, which I shop at, in Austin. So many of those people are socialists. It's just wild to me that they are. But and that's something else too. But yeah, how did we get here? I assume, for example,
when we socialize a system, it never works for the individual, and that our food system is socialized. And I don't think that people realize that. People that are screaming for socialized healthcare, I want to say, well, how is the socialized food system working for your health? And then you think you want the people running that and the people running the DMV to run your health. That's crazy talk.
Oh, I know. I don't know. And I don't know how I was 18 years old when the Berlin Wall came down. I mean, I'm looking around and just thinking, why are these ideas still alive? I don't.
I remember I was probably 14 and I had head lice. I remember I had head lice and my mom was picking lice out of my head and we were watching the news.
But yeah, and you're right. We're getting to a point where we may not even have enough health left to reproduce. It may sound morbid enough, but if we're stupid enough to let this happen, then we really don't deserve to survive.
Well, the problem is the programming. We've been programmed by the whole green movement, the whole environmental movement, that we're a pestilence, we're a plague, we're the problem, and we need to be eradicated. And only a society that has that low level understanding underneath everything else is okay with being eradicated. And that is what is happening. We were programmed to say it's okay to kill us. And while people are out in the streets screaming for one life that got shot or screaming for pro-life to be able to have reproductive rights, my question is, what about the rights of my children to reproduce? I want those reproductive rights. Why can't we scream in the street for, I want my children to be able to reproduce? That is something worth screaming in the streets about.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're talking about sperm counts. Now there are other factors. I had one guy on here said that a lot of sperm counts and stuff were mainly testosterone. He said it also could be due to solar activity, which is something we really can't control. But yeah, it's and I think I think part of it too is they want to create a very passive and docile citizenry. I mean, that was what the Kellogg brothers wanted to do.
Yeah, and that is true. And I don't know enough about the solar thing to talk about it, but I do know that I know a person personally that just stopped wearing plastic clothing, just stopped wearing polyester, and only is wearing cotton, linen, and wool. And his testosterone went up 250 points in 3 months.
Wow, that's wild, yeah.
And so we're putting plastic on our vagina, on our balls, on our penis, on our, we're wearing synthetics right against the most sensitive parts of our body. And by switching to all cotton, his testosterone went up exponentially. Yeah. Well, and there's that dog study. I don't know. Have you seen it? Where they put cotton pants on half the dogs, poly blend on half the dogs, and polyester pants on half the dogs. And the fertility is like exactly in line with how much polyester. So the polyester pants dogs lose a huge amount of their fertility. The blend, they lose like 50% of their fertility. And then the regular just cotton pants, they don't lose any fertility compared to no pants at all.
We can certainly get into another discussion about things like microplastics, I know, but I wanted to get you to talk about farming and how that works. I mean, what can you say, for example, about, corn and soy? Why are these so subsidized? We have things like, high fructose corn syrup, which is largely regarded as poison, but it was supposed to replace sugar, but it's replaced sugar because it's so much cheaper. What can you tell us about that?
I would tell you that the corn and soy lobby is so powerful, and it's just so powerful. That's the reality. It's like I'll tell you, I won't tell you who it was because it was like a closed door session and I'm not supposed to say, but somebody in the Trump administration said, when you're in meetings with these lobbyists of other industries, they're like, oh yeah, we acknowledge that there's some problems with our industry and there's some acknowledgement of that. And he was like, literally corn and soy, they just think there is no problems with their industry and they are unwilling to bend in any way, shape, or form. And there's many, many states that if you oppose the corn and soy lobby, you just don't get elected and that's like the whole center of the country. And so that is a problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem. I mean, and you even hear things like promoting ethanol and stuff like that for the
Oh,
gas.
it's crazy. We're growing ethanol and then we're importing food on the most fertile land in the world. We're growing gasoline when there's plenty of gasoline in the ground. It's craziness.
Well, it seems to me also that one, you mentioned food stamps, so that's SNAP benefits, and yet, and they're being able to buy pop. What would you say so is the fast food industry played a role in this? Because you go back to around World War II, the fast food industry barely existed. I mean, people just didn't go eat out like they go eat out now.
Yeah, it's all part of the manipulation to destroy the family unit. Like if the
Yeah,
family unit was intact and people were eating meals together, then that would not be a thing. But fast food, packaged food, convenience food, I mean, look in the grocery store. I don't know. I always joke that there's only about 5% of what's in the grocery store that I would eat. And people are like, that can't be real. And I'm like, no, that's for sure real. Like, there's like 5% of what's in the grocery store that I'm willing to eat. And the rest of it is straight poison. And we're just, it's health and safety standards. It went through the process. It's good to eat. And people are just shoveling it in their mouth. And then buying direct from the farmer is dangerous. It's crazy. But
yeah,
it's all fast food, convenience culture, eating out, seed oils, but that's all driven by big business that's in bed with the government. And so there is nobody lobbying for humans. There's nobody lobbying that, hey, we don't want to be poisoned by agrochemicals. Hey, we don't want to have, I mean, in 1996, we started spraying Roundup on all of our grain. Prior to 1996, it was like 0.02%. It was the legal limit of Roundup in food. And it still is for fruits and vegetables. That still is the legal limit for fruits and vegetables. But because they wanted to start selling Roundup to farmers to spray as a desiccant on the grains so that they could time exactly when they want to harvest. So understand this for people that don't understand. They are spraying Roundup on alive wheat plants or barley or oats. Then it dies, like as if it was a weed killer, it dies. And then they harvest it 14 days later with that desiccant on it. It didn't wash off. Where did it go? It's in your oatmeal. It's in your pizza.
yeah,
It's in your bread. Now, they lobbied to the EPA and the FDA, and they said we need 30 parts per million of glyphosate for grain. So anybody that's using actual science would tell you, why is it okay to have more parts per million in grain than it is in carrots? It doesn't make any sense. But it's because you obviously can't spray Roundup on a carrot right before you harvest it. And so they made it so that you could up the level and it's legal, not because of health reasons, so they could sell more glyphosate. Like,
yeah. So
wrap your head around that. Who's here fighting for the people? The pesticide shield is coming in like 11 different states. They're giving pesticide liability shield under the guise of like failure to warn laws. And it sounds like, oh, that we're making the pesticide company warn you that there's damage. But really what they're saying is you can't, because they warned you, you can't sue them. So it sounds like, oh, failure to warn. They're making the pesticide companies warn you how bad the chemicals are. No, that's not what they're doing. They're saying if you warn people on the package, you don't have to, you can't get sued because we told you it caused cancer. And that's happening everywhere. What
yeah,
happens when the pesticide companies have liability? The same thing that happened when the vaccine companies had liability. In 30 years, we went from 9 shots to 72.
yeah,
And we can't afford as a human race metabolically to have a 10x or a 7x increase of chemicals in our food. We just can't. So the, like you said, the industries, the lobbyists are who's controlling everything. In my own state, I had a senator, like a state congressman bring a bill about country of origin labeling. And the Cattlemen's Association are the ones that opposed it. Their lobbyists killed the bill before it ever got out of committee. Aren't the Cattlemen's Association supposed to be fighting for me, the cattlemen? No, Big Four. They're fighting for the Big Four.
The Big Four are who?
JBS, Tyson, Smithfield, and another one. I don't know. But the Big Four packing houses. And they're primarily foreign owned, just like all the agrochemical companies are foreign owned. Atrazine, which is like super damaging. I lived in a golf course for a long time. I didn't know that like atrazine poisoning causes all types of stuff. China doesn't let them spray atrazine in China, but they're spraying it here. Like, wrap your head around that we are supporting German and Chinese owned agrochemical companies buying chemicals that they don't spray on their own food and they don't want in their system.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you think about it, you could almost consider this an act of war. I mean,
it's definitely an act of war on humanity. But I think that we're too busy being distracted and arguing about like who people want to have sex with and what color people are and what red and blue and nobody gives about you. Like, I'm not in the illusion that there's anybody in government, maybe Thomas Massey, but there's anybody in government that's actually fighting for the people. I don't have that illusion.
Well, Thomas Massey, is of course, has his own. I believe he has some of his own farm. Yeah.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what's going on here.
He lives off grid. Yes. I'm saying I like Thomas Massey.
Yeah. I got to ask, what do you think about Sid Miller? Sid Miller's one of the few people in the state house that I like, our commissioner of agriculture.
There's someone running against him. What is his name? Which I am backing. I can't remember what his name is right at this moment, but
so you're backing somebody against Sid Miller. I'd love to hear your arguments about that. Yeah.
I just think that Sid Miller is kind of like status quo agriculture. He's not fighting for reinvigorating Texas as agricultural industry. And I think we need real farmers that are in the fight right now, coming to the table. And why can't I remember this guy's name? But he's coming to do a talk at our ranch, and we're doing a fundraiser for him coming up here very shortly. But yes, I am not backing Sid Miller. But I can ask my brother what the guy's name is. But
that's certainly been okay. I'm looking this up right now. Yes, certainly. He's certainly been there for a while. So. Yeah, he certainly.
But I think that we need to mix it up a little bit, and I think that we need people that are really going to work on deregulating the farming industry, pulling back the regulation. That has to be a focus of what we're doing.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, is anybody else advocating for deregulation? You did mention, of course, Thomas Massey, but.
I mean, and Thomas Massey is being attacked on all sides, and
Oh yeah, of course he is. I mean, I can assume I'm going to assume that you don't consider Donald Trump a friend in all this.
I think that Donald Trump is just part of the system, and I mean, I voted for him, but I don't think anybody is fighting for humanity. That, if I'm going to be honest, I don't feel like that. I don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that I voted for Trump thinking that it was obvious what the Democrats were doing with the Palantir, with the digital IDs, with COVID, with what they did to my businesses. I was selling my restaurants for $31 million. They closed us down, no indoor dining for 2.5 years in California. And so you need ID to vaccine passport. I'm pregnant. I can't even go pee in a restaurant. Like I wanted that to stop. and I thought that Trump was against that, but he is just as in bed with Palantir. He chose a running mate that it was basically a creation of Peter Thiel. And I just feel like this like post-human, transhuman, merge with the machine mentality is just rife through the whole government. And it doesn't matter red or blue. They don't give a crap about you. Everybody's trying to push us towards a more controlled system, a digital system, digital dollar, and that where we're totally controlled. And that is what the whole thing with ICE is about. And people don't realize that they implemented this surveillance technology that they were using in Gaza. They've implemented that with ICE. And so when people are talking about like this, like, oh, the immigration conversation, it's not even about the immigration conversation. It's literally about mass surveillance, and that they're just using the immigration conversation to get the mass surveillance in there. And I'm pro a closed border, but I'm also pro freedom and pro less surveillance. And my experience is that they use emergencies usually created to then take away our freedoms. And so when I see this chaos and I'm like very acutely aware of what freedoms are we losing as they pretend they need to respond, problem, reaction, solution, playbook.
It's a racket that goes on. Yeah. So and sometimes it might not even be a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, are there any, what exactly does the soy lobby do? Because I mean, I know where corn goes, but where does soy go?
Soy goes almost all to China. 60% of our corn goes to China, and China's not buying our soy right now because they're mad at Trump. And so here we are, fully leveraged to one buyer. And that is a terrible place to be. 60% of the world's soy is purchased by China, but China is now buying more soy from Ecuador. From Argentina, which we just gave a bunch of money to Argentina, and Argentina is like directly competing with our soy farmers and our beef farmers. And then also a bunch of areas of Africa have started growing soy for China.
Yeah, well, that money was swapped back, so from Argentina, but yes. So it's, but really from there, I mean, I should have mentioned this earlier too. I had a landlord, and while I did not witness this personally, his pit bull would not eat hamburger from McDonald's.
That's crazy, but I believe it. Do you know who Joel Salatin is?
Yeah, I've heard the name.
He has this idea, like, leave it up to the worms, like nothing that worms won't eat should be in the marketplace. And
that makes sense.
And he's like, it's cheap, and all you need is a bin with some worms in it, and then see if they eat it. If they don't eat it, then we don't want it in our system. But the vegan butter from our restaurants, when I had the vegan restaurants in Los Angeles, the worms wouldn't eat it. Only the pigs would eat it. No other animals on the farm would eat the vegan butter. So that's an interesting.
Vegan butter? There is such a thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's made out of seed oils like Earth Balance or New Balance, or it's called margarine, I guess. Is what.
That's one group that I think is almost becoming useful idiots for this group, are the vegetarians, which I think is just I think it's nonsense. Vegetarianism. It seems to work for a few people, but I don't think it's what we were meant to do.
I don't think it was what we were meant to do either. I don't eat very much meat. I was raised vegan. I was a well-known vegan chef turned Texas cattle rancher. But I think that veganism started out with a good, probably a good idea or something. But then you're saying the Kellogg's brothers and who all these other people get involved. And the next thing you know, it's another movement to cause division, to cause holier than thou kind of ideas. And that is what it is. And when I switched my restaurants from vegan in Los Angeles to regenerative, it was not just like natural protests, like people just showing up and protesting. They were coordinated protests with money behind them, professionally printed signs, people coming and dropping off water and doing shift changes. And this is not a natural, like, oh, when I was protesting like the vaccine shutdowns and stuff, it was just like random, all of us protesting. There was no like, no professional signs, like pick up your signs at this location, pick up your water bottles at this location, and then like support staff to support the protest. That was not like a thing.
Well, one thing, the Kellogg brothers claim, that people will be less horny if they eat cereal. And, I ate way too much cereal growing up. And, part of the thing about cereal too is, it's quick and easy. It's cheap. A 5 or a 6-year-old can make a bowl of cereal and you don't worry about it.
Right.
But you realize it really is just crap because it's heavily processed grains. If something can sit on a shelf for almost a year, it's probably not something you want to eat.
Exactly. Nathan Sheets. That's what I kept feeling like sheep, but that was not his name. Nathan Sheets is the guy that we're backing for Texas Ag Commissioner. You could probably have him on your podcast, and he's a good speaker, and he's got a lot of great ideas right now that is going to really support.
Yeah, okay.
And he's pro regenerative agriculture. I've never even heard Sid Miller mention soil health or regenerative agriculture or any of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know much about him. I know. Yeah, who knows what? I know the Libertarian Party has somebody running too. So
we'll see what happens.
Abbott endorsed Nate Sheets. I don't know what to say about that.
I'm not a huge Abbott fan.
Greg Abbott. How can you be a fan of Greg Abbott after 2020?
I cannot.
But it also begs the question: what can you say about the citizenry that keeps electing him after 2020?
I don't know. That's what my huge disappointment with Texas is. Like, I came from California, and I'm acutely aware of my freedoms being eroded and how quickly they eroded in California over the last 20 years. My experience is that Texas is not as acutely aware of our freedoms being eroded. It's almost like they live in this, like, it's a Republican state, like, kind of days. Like, we have freedom, and then like we don't have freedom, and people are still looking to the government to fix everything, and they're just not screaming for socialism. They're screaming for free markets, and their shirts say "come and take it" instead of LGBTQIA+. But the reality is they still expect the system to save them. There is not the individual resilience that I expected in Texas when I moved here.
I think Texas will become California. Maybe in 30 or 40 years, but it will be.
Great.
It will be as bad as, maybe not quite as bad, but I don't think
it's going to take that long. I just watch people asking for regulations, begging for regulations. I don't get it. They're like, oh, we should make a rule that people can't live in their RVs. Oh, we should have an ordinance for this. We should have an ordinance for that. Like, and then we are not logical even about our ordinances. Like right now, like all the well ordinances, okay, it's a commons, the water is common, I understand. But Bamberger Ranch has basically proven the theory of bringing back water to the aquifers in Central Texas. They did the work. They spent millions of dollars to prove it out, and nobody's following. We're just putting more straws in the aquifer, and then we're discussing how there's not enough water, and we're not doing anything to infiltrate water, and we don't even need to do the testing and the science because Bamberger Ranch did it for us. Okay. Why aren't we regulating? If we're going to regulate something, why don't we regulate that people have to sequester more water? If you have land, you have to bring water down into the aquifer. That's part of your job, to steward that land. I don't know, just an idea.
I don't know exactly what you're talking about here, but anyway.
Oh, so Bamberger Ranch proved that they're not the problem. It's the closed canopy of the cedar forest. And so they did on like several thousand acres, they opened up the cedar forest canopy. So anything they could not put their hands around was took out. And everything you could put your hands around was taken out. Everything you could not put your hands around was kept and just cleaned up a little bit. And basically, by opening up the cedar forest, what they realized is the problem is not that cedars are drinking or junipers are drinking too much water. It's that when they were never meant to be a closed canopy, because bison would run through and it would not get to be a closed canopy. And so when it closes and we get just a sprinkling of rain, which is very often here in Texas, where we just get a small misting and a small amount of rain, it never hits the ground on all those closed canopies, and then it evaporates back up. But they proved it out on several thousand acres that had no water. They bought it for cheap because there was no wells, there was no creeks, there was no springs, and they brought back all the creeks, all the springs, all the wells without development, just by opening up the cedar forest. And that is what we should be focusing on here in Central Texas, to refill our aquifers, rather than like, can we clean sewer water and pump it back into our aquifer?
Yeah, water is a complicated issue, because I don't know how you can possibly, how do you privatize water, because it's always moving and it's always, but yeah, that's always been something people have been concerned about. What are some other odious regulations that we haven't mentioned yet?
In the state of Texas, there's significantly less odious regulations. There is,
or other states, for example, aren't a lot of them just federal?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. No, like, okay, so for example, let's go on the raw milk. In the state of California, you can sell raw milk at the grocery store, but only 2 companies have gone through the regulatory hurdles to be able to do that. In Texas, you cannot sell raw milk at the grocery store no matter what. In Idaho, in order to have a raw milk dairy, all you need is a business license. That's it. Nothing else. So to me, I understand about states' rights, but like, who in these states is fighting for us to have these? Like, who's really like, I need to make sure that raw milk is not available for people like that? That's not the people. I'm sorry. We, the people, are not fighting for that. I'm pretty sure there's no, but that's all lobby driven. But it should be more universally kind of open, I believe, that, and then again, we can have the other pathway of the HEBs and the more commercial things. But I think if a farmer is selling direct to consumer within 500 miles of their farm, it should be totally no regulate. We don't need a government between me and my consumer at all. But when you go to different places, for example, like in California, you need a citrus moving permit. You need a permit to sell avocados at the farmer's market separate from your CPC, which is your certified producer certificate. And then you have to pay into the avocado lobby. You know, there's like an avocado lobby. And if you're going to sell at the farmer's market and they're not going to be able to take a specific amount when you sell it to the packing house, you have to pay $300 a year or whatever it is to have that permit to sell outside of that system. And on and on and on. So just to be farming in one way or another. For example, I grew and made hot sauce in the state of California. You need to have a cannery license to sell hot sauce. Even though I had a certified producer certificate, I grew the produce, and then I made it in a certified kitchen, and I had a food handler manager permit. I didn't have a cannery permit, and I hadn't gone to cannery training. And because of that, they raided all of my restaurants at the same time, as if it was like a heist, and they didn't want anybody to hide the hot sauce. And then they threw away all this hot sauce. And even though they sent it to be tested and I had to pay for all the testing, and then there was no botulism, no chemical, nothing was wrong with it, they then still made me destroy it all after they quarantined it or whatever. So, but then in the state of Texas, you just need a certified kitchen in order to make hot sauce and sell it. And then I could sell that hot sauce to mail order to California. So why? It doesn't make any sense. Like, these rules are often a money grab, and a lot of states are using additional regulations as needing additional permits. One time I added up how many permits I needed just to run my restaurant, and it was like 19 permits to run my restaurant. And so that kind of realization has you go, oh, I get it. It's all just another form of taxation, and we definitely don't have representation with that taxation.
Yeah, I know you have permits. I mean, and I don't think any of these permits existed 100 years ago, or you know, you still see that. You go abroad, for example, you'll still see that case, where the fisherman goes out and then he comes back at the end of the day and he says, and he goes up to the restaurant and say, "Hey, you want to buy my fish?" And they say, "Sure, we'll buy your fish." And then those fish are, the fish sold to the customers the next day.
Yeah,
It's
that's not allowed here.
yeah, it's yeah. So I am curious, what. So tell me about what exactly you had restaurants in California. What exactly happened with your restaurants in California?
I was selling them for 31
2020. Yeah,
million. I was
yeah,
selling them for $31 million. I was in the midst of doing the deal, going through all the due diligence, blah, 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 blah. Had to hit these specific markers. I hit those markers. We did great numbers, and we were going to get the 30. It was originally 25 to 31 million. It looked like we're going to get the 31 million. I hit all the markers, exceeded the markers. Best quarter we ever had was Q1 of 2020. And then they closed us down 2.5 years, no indoor dining. So obviously the VC money went away. I was unable to sell my restaurants. I lost 3 of them during the pandemic. I lost the other 2 after the pandemic. 350 employees, millions and millions of dollars a year in sales, and 15 years of my labor stolen from me by bureaucracy and this idea that quarantining healthy people made sense.
yeah. It's so yeah. I know. I don't. And this was something that was, yeah. This to me is just. I hope this was the low point for the entire world, and
Oh, it's not.
I don't think
It's something worse is coming, and people are just going to forget immediately.
Well, yeah, because I wonder about that. Yeah, that was what that's yeah, but I know because nothing has been learned. Well, nothing was learned from the 20th century. I mean, all these horrible things that happened in the 20th century, and nothing was learned. Nothing. I mean, there's still the same chance of making those same mistakes. I mean, I've said, I don't think it's going to happen, but I've said, the 21st century could be even deadlier than the 20th. We had 200 million people killed by governments, but I think we're probably going to kill ourselves in much more different ways this time.
Yeah, for sure. We already are.
Either with food or with not breeding in general or whatever. It's just because we've certainly demonstrated that there isn't enough collective intelligence to do anything about this.
I mean, I was shocked. I've never vaccinated myself, and I never vaccinated my children. I was in a kind of hippie group of friends in California, and most of them didn't vaccinate their children, was homeschooling. I was shocked how quickly they just let those values go right out the window because my trip to Cabo, my cruise, my this, like whatever thing they wanted to do, they were willing to just like surrender their values. And I guess the difference between me and other people is that I don't, when I believe something, I believe it. And it's very hard for me to just decide something different because of this. Like I can't. Like if something makes sense, but nothing made sense. Like, oh, you can't sit at the bar, but you can sit at tables. And the tables have to be first. The tables did not have to be far apart. They just had to have dividers. Then we build all these dividers, and then they're like, oh no, they have to be 6 feet apart. Oh no, the tables actually have to be 8 feet apart, so that when the chair comes out from the table, then it's 6 feet between the chairs, and on and on and on. It was always like Friday at midnight. The new rules are in place. And I was like, if it was so paramount that people are going to die, why are we even like playing? I took my kids to Disneyland during COVID, and all these people with their sanitizer and their masks. And I'm like, if people really thought that their kids could possibly die from going to Disneyland, they would not take their kids to Disneyland. And then my kids are like, just walking along, putting their mouths on stuff probably. And people are like, and I'm like, if you actually think your kid might die from coming to Disneyland, you should stay home because that's crazy. Like that's a crazy risk for a family vacation or a day of fun in Orange County. Like, but I don't think that people really believed it. Like, did people really believe it? Or they just like, it's easier to believe it than to go against the grain? Because if you believed it, if I thought there was a chance my child would die, I would never go to Disneyland, like never, or that I or my husband could die. Why were people still going to these places?
I've learned that a lot in this world, they don't even have any solid beliefs at all. They really don't. they'll change them over anything but yes. Uh, so so what kind of environmental regulations do you have to deal with? We've talked about farm subsidies. We haven't really talked about things like the EPA or things like that.
Well, the environmental regulations are kind of a joke. They're honestly in the favor of all the chemical industry, and they're not in the favor of human beings. Here in Texas, there's not that many, but they do regulate in my county how much water we suck from the ground. On one hand, I understand that, but I just wrote an article about that too. Like, what we spend our water on is what we worship. We seem to be happy to spend a lot of money on AI data centers. And so we can replace ourselves, but we're not, but we're limiting how much water farmers can use to grow food. And to me, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem like a logical, human centered way of looking at the world.
Yeah, yeah. So so there hasn't been that much with the EPA. Uh, where do you any other lobbies we haven't mentioned during this conversation? We talked about the soy lobby, the corn lobby.
Soy and corn, and then there's the agrochemical, pharmaceutical, which are kind of
Yeah.
intertwined, and then there's the beef lobby is also powerful.
Oh, what can you tell me about the beef lobby?
The beef lobby is always lobbying to be able to import other people's beef and
Okay.
and undermine. And they work for the Big Four. That's who hires them. And
Yeah.
so there has been some movement on the. I don't know if you're familiar, but like the labeling regulations. So now it's not required, but now if you say product of the USA, it has to have been born, slaughtered, and uh, packaged here in the United States, but you're not obligated to. So there's some people that want us to make it obligatory, but the beef lobby, of course,
Yes.
fought against that. And it may still be coming. I don't know. But right now, if you see after January 1st, if you see product of the USA, which you may have noticed, there's almost nothing that says product of the USA in your grocery stores now, because before it was only had to add value in the USA. So you could bring trim from Argentina, grind it into ground beef here, and then it would be a product of the USA. You could get a carcass from New Zealand and carve it up here, and then it would be product of the USA. And so because of that, there was a lot of deception happening. Now, there's very little things that say product of the USA, and it is fully voluntary if you want to do it, but you have to prove that the cow was born here and slaughtered here and packaged here to do that.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, the big four: Tyson Foods, JBS, which apparently is a subsidy of a Brazilian company,
Yes, it is.
Cargill, and National Beef.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, I suppose JBS is also they want to turn the rainforest into a cattle farm, which I don't think is.
And they've been caught bribing officials. They've gone to prison for bribing, all this stuff. And then now we're trading them on the stock market. Like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
good people, good people.
Well, yeah, and your bribes probably go further in Brazil because it's just a lot more. I think Americans are working on it. I think Americans are probably going to, like the one guy who likes to call America a banana republic with air conditioning.
Yes.
And a Brazilian came back to me and said, "No, oh, we've got air conditioning here too." Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing too. Too. I don't know. Did you ever want to say? I have anything to say about fruit production or vegetable production? Or you're not really into it all that much, or
Well,
because
that was my whole business in California. Again, the
yeah,
fruit production and vegetable production is all also impacted by imports because
yeah,
there's massive amounts of fertile land in Mexico just across the border. There's food coming from everywhere. People don't care about eating local, so you're competing just like you are with beef. You're competing with Mexican avocados are competing. I mean, you're competing with Mexican avocados. You're competing with these oranges from all across the world. And so I bought an orange orchard in California down the street from my house that I lived at. And there was a little house on the property. And the guy died while we were in escrow. So I ended up with all his records, and his kids were scared
yeah.
to fly on the airplane because of COVID. Roll my eyes so hard that I can't. But anyway, so they didn't come out to clean out the house because they were scared. And so I ended up cleaning out his house, and I found records that he was paid more for his oranges in 1979 than I was being paid by like double. Like, and so in 2022, 2021, 2023, those years, he was getting, I got $14,000 for the oranges those years, around $15,000. The trees were bigger, and
Yep.
and we had more oranges, and he got 17,000, 18,000, and 15,000 those 3 years, like 3 years that I had records in the 70s. And so you can think that, wow. And he was talking about how he bought the whole orchard for $25,000 and he was getting $19,000 in 1 year. He was saying how amazing this is.
Yeah, because this was in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's sending his kids to college with this money, and he doesn't even need to work at his machine shop anymore, but he wouldn't know what to do with himself, but he just is so proud of himself for buying this investment of this orange orchard, and he's just over the moon. He's writing in his little journal, and I found this. And so it just goes to show that how could that be? Everything else is more expensive. The diesel, the land, the water, and the labor is all more expensive. So how could the oranges be so much cheaper? It's only because we're being exploited by competing with labor. Like if you're my brother-in-law's, my husband's Mexican, so all my brother-in-laws live in Mexico. My brother-in-law was traveling to the oil rigs, and he was getting paid like $150 a week to work hard labor on oil refinery in Mexico, right? And then we bought him a little scooter that has a 2-seat in the back, and he's doing cab rides around the village now, and he's making that $150 a day, and he doesn't have to go and do this hard labor or whatever. But that, my point is, he was getting $150 a week, and we have to pay in California, minimum wage is like $18, I think. So how could the orange farmer in California compete with the orange farmer in Mexico?
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Yeah. One thing though too is you have to ship the food, especially, good fruits really don't last that long. I mean, I know avocados, especially, those are foods, that you can, they often mold within less than a week.
No, less than a week of you getting it, but the avocado you're getting in the store is 45 days old. Takes a long time for avocados. Avocados are picked hard, and then they're shipped, and then they're in commercial, they're ripening them chemically. And so then they ripen really fast once you get them in the grocery store, because they're using gas to ripen them. And that's the truth for all the oranges that are growing closer to the equator. They're green. If you're in Mexico or other countries, the oranges are green. They don't turn orange. Ours turn orange because of the cold weather. But they are ripening them with gas. But the other day, someone bought some avocados from me that I'm getting from California from my old place. And they were like, I've had these avocados for 10 days and they're not ripe. And I was like, well, they were just picked right before you got them. And so it's going to take some time. Avocados actually have a pretty good shelf life. The problem is not from when the consumer gets them, but on the other side, they're living they're in cold storage for a long time.
I've heard about this gassing fruits to ripen them. What can you tell me about that? This sounds like
I don't know that much about it. We've never done it, of course, but I know that this is a thing that is done in tomatoes, in avocados, in oranges. And then there's another kind of gas that they use for keeping things from decomposing. So grapes, apples only have one season. Grapes only have one season. So when you're eating grapes outside of the fall time, when it would be a normal time to have grapes, they have been kept in some kind of hyperbaric gas chamber that is not letting them decompose. And I don't know enough about it. I know that a human can die in those refrigerators. And so there's like things to slide the stuff out and pull it out. But I don't know. I've never worked with that at all, but I know it's for pears, for apples, for grapes. It's a big part of how they keep them fresh for so long. The varieties that we grow now are all conducive to being gas stored.
I mean, are we harming the nutritional value? I mean, what's happening to these foods when they're being
Oh, I mean, I think when you're getting 6 months out from when a food was harvested, there's definitely some loss of nutrition, significant loss of nutrition. I
yeah,
would say that there is crops that we have always historically had as storage crops and that gave us
yeah,
nutrition through the winter. Apples, beets, carrots, cabbage. These are things that we have historically in this
yeah,
climate stored through the winter time, and they have helped us eat some vegetables through the winter. So I'm not 100% anti-storage, but when we start using, gas and different things, and obviously it's not the same as eating some produce that was harvested right away. But since plants can't make minerals anyway, they can only uptake minerals from healthy soil. We need microbiology to make the minerals available. So the more that we get into this, where we just pour chemicals onto soil, or we use hydroponics, um, or we are just like not having live soil microbiology, those things are going to add to us having foods that are high in nitrates and low in minerals, because you need a living system to extract the minerals from the soil and put it into the food.
yeah. Well, that's one thing too. That's been a natural thing for a while. The old house will have the fruit cellar where it gets a little cooler, and and I've certainly kept apples and things like that. And I mean, I've almost always refrigerated my apples just because that seems like I don't think it doesn't seem like refrigeration is one thing that's really bad for your food, at least not.
No.
I keep my vegetables in refrigerators too. It's yeah, it's just wild to see how some of this stuff is removed as from nature. Some people talk about soil depletion. What can you tell us about that? I mean, is it just getting to a point where we have less minerals in the soil or less nitrates in the soil?
Well, the problem is we don't have a living food soil web. And so every plant is pulling carbon out of the atmosphere, turning it into carbohydrates, feeding microbiology. That microbiology is then making nitrogen through its feces or whatever. I don't know the exact biology, depends on the what the microbiology is, but then through its excrement, it's creating nitrogen and it's making minerals available for the plant. But we are largely not growing healthy soil anymore. We're just pouring chemicals on and using synthetic nitrogen, phosphorus, just really doing the NPK and okay, we need this many pounds of nitrogen, phosphorus, and then doing those calculations and growing our food in that way. We're no longer trying to grow healthy soil that is producing its own nitrogen. And so when you have nitrogen that is through a living soil food web, that creates super nutrient dense food. When you're just pouring nitrogen on top and growing a big food, it may be big, it may be uniform, but it has nitrates and it also is not a super healthy food. It's missing the minerals that are necessary to have a living soil. So regenerative agriculture is the practice of growing healthy soil and understanding that soil is our common ground, and that as long as the soil is healthy, then everything upchain is healthy. And so by creating healthy soil in God's design, we then create nutrient dense food, nutrient dense meat, because the cows are eating nutrient dense grass and up the whole way up the system.
Wow, yeah. And I know, and you did talk about spices. You have much knowledge about spices? Because I guess spices were the original preservatives.
Spices were the original preservatives. They're also the original anti-parasitics. And I think that we're all suffering from parasite problems. And, I think that we don't take parasite cleanses in this country as commonly as we do in every other country. But it's very common knowledge in other places that certain kinds of parasites end up cutting off oxygen and causing cancer in our bodies. And we don't regularly do parasite cleansing here in the United States. But statistically, Mexicans have lower cancer rates than many other countries around them, including ourselves. And what people believe is that is because they're eating a minimum of 15 jalapeno pepper seeds a day is a way to keep parasites at bay, specifically these parasites that cut off oxygen and let cancer grow. And so that's an interesting thing. and cayenne pepper and all these different garlic. These were all our parasite. And so as our food gets more bland, more commercial, and less spicy, then we're doing less good for our parasite cleansing.
Yeah, I often hear about the Mediterranean diet. What can you tell us about that? Because that seems to be a diet that promotes longevity.
There's a lot of controversy about like the Mediterranean diet causing longevity, the blue zones. What is the real reason of the blue
Yeah.
zones? And I don't think that I am enough of an expert on it. But what I have to say, and I'm going to tell you this, like, you take the vegan diet, the vegetarian diet, the carnivore diet, the Mediterranean diet, the keto, the paleo, the caveman, like all these diets, right? The majority of why people are getting better, and people will tell you they've cured cancer from every one of them. People will tell you they lost 100 pounds from every one of them. They're cutting out the ultra processed foods. And so my thing about diet and what I tell people is you just need to cut out the ultra processed foods and then you're going to be healthy. And if you are a blood type and you could do a vegetarian diet, like the entire continent of India is mostly doing, then go right ahead. If you want to be eating only meat, which is, there's plenty of tribes all around the world that have showed that almost only meat diets are totally healthy, then go right ahead. It's the sugar, the white flour, and the ultra processed seed oils that are causing our metabolic dysfunction. If you cut out seed oils, white flour, and sugar, you're going to be fine and you're going to lose weight and you're going to cure and reverse disease. But I'm a huge believer in doing the raw milk fast every year. My longest was 46 days. I'm about to do 46 days again for Lent. I lost 40 something pounds. All my inflammation, everything that was in my body that was causing pain or discomfort disappeared. My husband's doing it right now. And he's like blown away. He was so resistant to it. He did not want to do it. And he was gaining weight and he was being overweight. And he didn't even tell me he was doing it. He's seen me do it multiple times, but he doesn't like to tell me things because then he knows I'll hold him accountable to doing the thing that he said he was going to do. So he kind of like secretly just stopped eating and started doing the raw milk fast. And he's like 10 days in and he's lost 20 pounds. And he's saying, all this pain in his knees is gone. All this pain in his his wrists are gone. And he's like, I'm more aware. I'm looking at the world from a different perspective. It's like almost like I could back up and have more discernment. And so I think there's so many ways that this food is impacting us that we don't even know. And that's why I like to give up food for Lent and do some version of raw milk and bone broth for 46 days every year during Lent.
Where do you get this raw milk?
We have cows. I have cows, so I can get it right from my cows. But you're in Austin. There's plenty of places to do raw milk pickups in Austin. You could look around and see. It's not at a grocery store. You'd have to pick it up at a farm or at a farmer's market. And if it's at a farmer's market, you have to pay in advance and then pick it up because of the Texas laws are weird. They don't want you to be able to, you can't sell raw milk at the farmer's market. But if you bought raw milk from a farm, you can pick it up at the farmer's market. They're keeping us safe. Don't you worry.
I could come over and buy it from you.
You could.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a trip. But if you put together, I'm trying to get
you seem like a trustworthy source. And when you're doing things like this, it's important to have a trustworthy source and know who you're buying it from. Anytime I ask for a recommendation, I hate it when somebody says, well, just go to a random doctor, just go to a random lawyer. No. Tell me somebody specific to go to.
I totally agree. And you can know that I have a 2-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old, and they're drinking it every single day. So when people say, like, is this safe while I'm breastfeeding? I will say, I'm breastfeeding and I have 4 children that are drinking it every single day. So I don't have a certification or something but that's my certification, is that I am making sure it's safe for my family.
Well, that's good. Most mom, and this is the other thing too. We talked about, moms are not managing their kids' food anymore. I mean, this again reminds me of why I'm not a feminist. I absolutely think that working women has contributed to all this,
And I'm a working woman. I'm not going to say that I'm not. And I married my husband. I already had a business. I'm the public's face of our business. I write for a living as well. I have a daily column, and I am the public facing side of our business. And so, it's hard for me when I'm having these conversations because people say, well, you're a working mom. And I say, yeah. But yesterday, when my son has chicken pox and he's screaming and I have to leave and go to do a public speaking engagement, and there's like this much money on the table that we need to pay the electric bill, and your child is screaming because he does not want you to leave him with chicken pox with a babysitter, that decision is impossible. And it is not actually the decision I should have to make. The decision should be that that's not actually my job. That's not how it was. Me and my husband got married. I was already who I was. And this is the way that life has gone. I have surrendered so much to my husband, and people don't talk about submission and surrender that much in our culture. And especially someone like me that's an entrepreneur and a business woman and the primary breadwinner in our household, I still talk about surrender and submittal is really important. And if we don't have that in our culture, and I also think that I designed my whole life and my whole entrepreneurial business to have my children inside of a ranch and this super nutrient dense food and this super healthy lifestyle. But it's not perfect by any means. And I'm still the mother leaving her children when they need her, and it's not okay.
Yeah. Of course, at the same time, if kids are on a farm, they're definitely being put to work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my dad complains so much about having to get up and milk the cows, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, though, because I think kids feel like they have a purpose, and so many kids don't have a purpose anymore.
Oh, yeah. My kids have jobs. They bus tables in the restaurant. They seal packages for the farm store. They package tinctures. They seal tinctures. They do so many different things. They put stickers on bottles. They go out and they help. This morning they were helping with this goat miscarriage. They have bottle fed. I can't tell you how many babies where they're like have an alarm, and every 2 hours they got a bottle feed a baby. My kids are definitely involved in all of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. The goat miscarriage, that had to be. I imagine you probably have a lot of things you have to deal with like that. And I just, you called me and said I'm going to be late, and I just said, well, it's okay. You had a medical emergency. I mean, that's what it is. Although it was an animal and not a person, but it was still a medical emergency.
A medical emergency, yeah. The funny thing is, I wrote about this recently. I did a farm tour, and this woman was so upset, and that we stopped the farm tour because this cow was stuck between these trees, and I had to get it. And then she realized that it was life or death. And then she was crying. And then she said, nothing is this urgent in my life. Nothing, like I got to go to work, or should I go to work, or should I call in sick, or I'm tired. Should I go out to eat? Should I go have drinks with my friends, or should I not? But it's all kind of like how I'm feeling. And nothing is like, this needs to happen right now, or this other thing is going to die. And I said, that's every day on the farm. And so at first she was like, you're just going to stop the farm tour. Like she was a little annoyed. Then she realized what was happening. And then she was crying, and she was like, realized that nothing in her life is that urgent. And I think that we used to live a life where everything is really urgent, and we've moved into a life where things are not that urgent. Like the system is kind of so, has lulled us into this sense of security. But when you're farming and you're in the elements, and if you don't do this, if you don't do that, you're going to die, or an animal is going to die, or you're not going to have water. I talk about this a lot. My house has only wood heat in the main section of the house. The bedrooms have a separate unit, but the main section of the house only has the wood cook stove and the wood heat. And people are like, well, why don't you just put in a furnace? And I was like, there's something about preparing for winter, harvesting wood, having it stacked up, making sure that you're good, that keeps you related to like real world. Like we just press a button and a heat comes out. We press a button and we turn it up and turn it down. Like me and my husband have a rhythm. Like we have to tend to, put a big log in, so there's still coals in the morning, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to clean out the wood cook stove, but we'll leave the fireplace on, and we'll let this turn off for a little bit, clean it out, then get that started. Like there's a rhythm to that I think is important, and that we've lost like some ability to just be human beings in this world.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we've grown away from the real world too fast. Talking about that goat miscarriage, I'm going to assume that we probably had a lot of improvements in healthcare for animals. I mean, you're probably not losing, having as many animal deaths as you used to. I mean, better ways to fight diseases and stuff like that. Is that happen or not?
Yeah, I don't vaccinate. It's just like I don't vaccinate my
Yeah.
humans. I don't, but we supplement with minerals. And I was just gonna go check when we last supplemented because that miscarriage happened. I was about to go check that right after this. Is like when was the last supplementation, and if they're due for more supplements. But that is giving them minerals is really, really important because just like how we as human beings are not as healthy as we used to be, our animals are not as healthy and they need to be supplemented with minerals because our forage no longer has the minerals that it used to have in it.
Well, yeah. We're getting to a point, where most parents do not know what it's like, for example, to lose a child. And you go back 150 years, most parents did experience that. I think
Yeah.
they would lose a child, and that has to change your perspective. Just on your kids. I mean, there were more. I mean, as much as we criticize healthcare, I mean, it did beat a lot of the infectious diseases, but now we're getting more to chronic diseases, and we're getting more to chronic diseases just because we do live longer. It's people didn't live long enough to get chronic diseases in the past.
Well, I want to push back on that. Statistically, people lived longer than we're living right now. It's just that the average, because so many babies were lost before 2 years of
Yeah.
age. And so that is actually like people use that to promote the medical industry. And I want to just push back and say, if you pull out the kids that were lost in the first 2 years of life, which was largely to malnutrition, I mean, not that they weren't getting sick, but nutrition, we were struggling with nutrition. And then that was making people susceptible to all types of things.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
But once you got past that, it wasn't that way. And my husband is indigenous from Mexico, and he grew up in a small town called Juan Malula, Santa Maria, that didn't have a road to the outside world until 1991. And you can see a radical shift in the health of people since they got access to the outside world and the supply chain of white flour and sugar and Coca-Cola and all those things. And you can see that Elias's grandfather, my husband's grandfather, died at 96 years of age, and his father just died at 67 years of age. And when I went to his father's funeral, you could see so many, nobody wears pants. None of the women wear pants. They all wear skirts because of the tradition. You could see those marks from the diabetes on everybody's ankles. And I thought, this is rapid. This is from 1991 till now. And his grandmother died in the earthquake. I want to say, I don't know, at least 6 years ago, when there was a big earthquake in Mexico, in the south of Mexico. I can't remember, but I think it was before my 6-year-old was born. So more than 6 years ago, but she was also in her 90s, and a beam fell on her head. But then now the next generation, the age of his parents, which are in their late 60s and early 70s, are dying at the same time, essentially, as these 90-year-olds are dying. And I do believe that the original indigenous diet, which is not anything we really eat here. I mean, fish, dried pork, turtle eggs, corn tortillas, iguanas, and then whatever things you could hunt. And squash. That's the foundation of their indigenous diet. That diet had people live to be 100 or, late into their 90s. And then by bringing in these outside foods, we've lowered the life expectancy abruptly.
I don't know if you've ever been to Iquitos, which is in the Peruvian Amazon, but it's about 500,000 people, and you only get there by boat or by plane. I mean, it's a lot of people, but it just seemed like, when I was there, said I think these people eat better than we do. And this was one of the poorest places I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure they do. I have not. I went to the Achuar people in Brazil and in Ecuador, but it wasn't like 500,000. It was more like 250 in different villages. And I went to multiple villages of the Achuar people, but they definitely eat. I mean, they're eating that fermented beverage made from the yucca root. And then they're eating birds and stuff that they're killing, and then they're harvesting things from the forest.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of fruits and stuff. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, well, any other questions? I have to get
Yeah.
myself to get the
Yeah.
restaurant open here shortly.
Okay.
It was a pleasure to hang out
Yeah,
with
it
you
was
this
great having you.
morning.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was great having you. Yeah. Anything else to say before? Yeah, nothing else real at this point.
Well,
I may want to keep your info. I'm very curious about the whole raw milk thing. Oh, I did want to ask you, what do you do for water? I mean, I have a Berkey water filter. Anything to say about water?
we have a Berkey water filter, and we have a whole house filter and we have well water, so I'm not. But yeah, I think it's important to filter our water. I think Berkey is good. Whenever they make something illegal, I think, oh, that's probably the best one. And they did make the Berkey illegal. And so we do filter our water, and we do have well water. So I think water is super important. If people want to find me, you can find me on Instagram, Talk to Mollie, or YouTube, Talk to Mollie, or anywhere that you can find. And then I write every day in the Epoch Times, and you can go to sovereigntyranch.com if you want to support the work that I'm doing. Buy something in our farm store. You can buy food, you can buy makeup, you can buy face cream. We make it all here by hand at the ranch, and we'd love you to support in that way.
Okay, well, please like the show, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out my Substack, and people are giving me money at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you, Mollie Engelhart. I'm Chris Baker. We're out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.